Welcome to NatRevMD, a podcast where we share tips on optimizing medical billing and improving practice efficiency so you can have the business of your dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Signorelli, founder of NatRevMD. Let's get started. Most people think building a medical practice is about perfecting workflows or negotiating contracts, which we talk about a lot. But the real truth is, the one that you only learn after years of doing this, is that the health of your practice is going to mirror the health of the people inside of it. And so when your physicians and clinicians are supported, they're rested, and they're trusted, patients are going to feel that immediately. So today's episode, we're going to dive into what it really looks like to build a practice model where the business, the clinician, and the patient ecosystem really all thrive together, not by accident, but truly by design. And I'm excited to spend time with Dr. Dan, who has built an incredible practice within rural hospitals, a hospitalist group across multiple different facilities. He's somebody I've known for over 10 years and just an incredible physician, but also has built a really unique practice that I think is always great to hear how other people are doing this, so that as you are building your practice or maybe redesigning your practice as we go into 2026, you're thinking about what it is that you could do differently, or what it is that you feel supported that others are doing the same. All right, let's get started.
Everything's going great. Yeah. I'm just, things are starting to grow. And so it's been really fun.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting out of that beginning stages, as you probably understand. It's really hard getting a company up and running.
Yeah, it is. I think it takes about, it's funny, it goes, in healthcare, or not even just healthcare, in business in general, you think of this like beautiful linear path. You're going to open this company and then it's going to be fine. And it's more of like this lumpy, bumpy thing where I think for us, it was 18 months to 2 years before I felt like I could breathe. And then each year that goes by, it's different challenges, but it's not the same like pressure. Would you say the same?
Right. You've got a good foundation as time goes on, and you can kind of take a little bit of a sigh of relief knowing that you have a good structure. Right. And definitely with time, right, you put in all that effort, it finally starts to become something where you can have some things on autopilot, right? You're not doing every single little thing yourself. You're starting to get some more help. And so, definitely as time goes on, it almost becomes a little bit more fun, I think.
Yeah. What did you get trained in? I mean, what was your background in? But how did you even think about this type of clinic model?
Right. So, interestingly, we met when I was an intern. And at that time, I was intern with the University of Colorado. Had a great residency, I thought, just because it was very nurturing. I wanted to do several different weird things that really nobody had quite done with the program before. And so it was a family medicine program. And I think that is now kind of breeding a lot of clinic providers, and not as many hospitalists. There still are hospitalists coming out of those programs. I think it's 10, 15%.
Yeah.
So it's still a good numbers. But the really fun part about my residency was I said, I think I'm going into rural medicine, and it's going to be pretty low resource. So I need to know how to do tons of procedures.
Everything.
Really have to be able to feel comfortable with handling just about everything, cradle to grave. And so it was a great place for me to do residency, where they helped get me ready and prepared for the real world. And then as an aside, I met Gary Winfield right on the first week of my intern year.
And what year was that? I'm just trying to...
That was 2015.
Yeah. Okay. So I had just finished fellowship and I was pregnant, I think, with my second child.
Yeah. So Gary started talking to me about what he did. And actually, I found that very fascinating. Mm-hmm. And so he actually kind of pulled me a little bit and said, hey, I want you to meet with you and a handful of other folks. And so the cool thing about my residency as well is that they allowed me to dig into some quality improvement projects and do some of that fun stuff as well. And so to kind of get a bit into the business, I was sitting at tables with a lot of big decision makers, and I was able to observe, which I don't think many doctors have the ability to do. And so I was able to get that exposure really early on, which has really helped me as far as leading the group going forward. Actually, Gary probably doesn't remember this, but there were some times where I would be on a meeting with him and he would coach me through different ways people were interacting. And it was fascinating to kind of get that point of view.
Yeah. It's funny how certain mentors, like from a leadership perspective, because you're right, we don't get a lot of this training in residency, medical school,
Very little.
all of the above, right? But at the end of the day, it's those little moments that you build upon over time. And you're like, okay, I'm going to use that skill. Again, whether it's business or leadership, because I think when you're running your own practice and your own company, those sort of nuggets get built over time and are what helps make you successful.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really am happy with the training that I had. So when I got out of residency, I kind of hit the ground running, went directly into a critical access hospitalist role and really loved it. It was awesome. I mean,
were you employed then, or were you always kind of like 1099?
Always 1099. So I started with a group that I actually had I had a lot of respect for the owner of that group, and he's since sold, which kind of spurred me to do my own thing. But I also had some great experiences with that group. Initially, I was with them for about 5 years, and I covered almost I would say about 10 hospitals over those 5 years. And each different hospital, of course, is doing things differently. And these are rural hospitals. So some of them are completely independent. Some have oversight from the big corporations. But the cool thing about being in a rural hospital is you get to sit at the table kind of at day one and help make some really big decisions. And so, as time went on, I thought, I could probably do this better than the company that I'm currently working for. I see some great areas to improve upon. And then, honestly, the big nudge was I found out how much the hospital was being charged. And I thought that was a bit unethical. And also the doctors were getting 45% of the pie. And, this was, of course, after a really, really tough, brutal shift that I was up several nights in a row. And it was, I'm really busting my chops over here and I'm getting a very small chunk of the pie. So I thought, well, if I charge the hospitals less, pay the doctors more, it seems simple enough. And actually just that simple initial model. And then also don't forget, you have to treat the doctors well. Just those small little things have kind of turned into a really good business model.
And so let's for the audience, let's go over what is your model today and how has that changed from when you started to what it looks like today?
Yeah, so we are hospitalists that work in rural frontier hospitals, and overall census in these hospitals are much less than the big city. Of course, critical access, we're talking 25 beds or less. Some of the other hospitals may be a 40-bed hospital or less. But my group, including myself, we go into these hospitals and we provide great care. Whether you're family practice, the majority of us are family practice, so we are able to admit pediatrics in the hospital as well as adults in the hospital. We feel very comfortable with the ICU setting and all the things that come with that. Really the big thing here is we're available 24/7. And so we do, let's say, a 5-day stretch. And so, you run on your patients in the morning and you take your admissions throughout the day. And then the big model change that I like to do is at 10 o'clock to about 6, 7 in the morning. If there are any basic admissions like pneumonia, 2 liters of oxygen, they're not that sick. They already got their antibiotics. They already, received a fluid bolus or whatever else they may need. There's not going to be a ton of other interventions required in the next, 5-7 hours.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing is these hospitals, we have really good relationships with the ER providers. Well, they'll put in a tuck-in order or some orders, acetaminophen or, ibuprofen, because they won't need that antibiotic until exactly. And so then at 7 a.m., I come in and then I do the rest of the admission and make sure their home meds are up to date. And so what that does is it protects sleep, which is really important, believe it or not. You need to have some sleep, especially if you're on for 4 days. And, my intervention at 3, 4 in the morning is not going to make that much of a difference or really any difference at all, since they already had the initial treatment and I'm not going to make any changes, for a while anyways. That part has really helped doctors, enjoy their job more. It's going to prevent burnout. They're going to make better decisions because they got better sleep. And so for this kind of niche model, it works really, really well, particularly, we're in the critical access hospitals. And the one thing I'll add on that is we have offsite housing. And so that's the other
Just
piece.
Just going to ask where you sleep.
Yeah. So, and trust me, I did it. I slept in a closet in a hospital for 21 days out of the month. And you can do that for a short while, but it burns you out. It's so bad for your mental health. I mean, I did that for 3-4 years and it wasn't going to work out. And so these hospitalists that were doing that, they burn out so fast. What are you going to do in 5 to 10 years? If you love clinical medicine, you're going to burn yourself out so fast where you're not going to want to do that job or enjoy that job. And so what are some ways that we can reduce the burnout? Because if you have unhealthy doctors, you're going to have an unhealthy population. They're not going to be able to take care of the rural communities nearly as well. So it's been cool to see how just making that change has really helped out my colleagues or the docs that I work with in the long term.
That's good. Yeah, that is hard. Now, I've got a question. So for the docs that you work with today, are most of them doing this alongside other roles, or have most of them transitioned to full-time? Or does that sort of change as you bring on more facilities? Because you have 5 facilities now?
4 facilities right now.
4 facilities.
Yeah. Going to be 5 and 6 here in 26. But it's a pretty good mix. We do have our core providers that are there and, they want their set shifts. But then there are quite a few doctors that would like to work 3 to 5 days in the hospital and still keep those skills running. I usually tell docs, if you want to keep hospitalist skills up, you need to work 5 days a month at the hospital doing hospitalist care. And so there are quite a few docs that do 3 to 5 days, and they kind of fill in some of those. Yeah, just a month. Full-time, believe it or not, is 7 24s a month. And so some docs will just crank out 7 shifts, and then, that's it for the month. And it pays well. So, I mean, that pays better than if you're doing a hospitalist gig in the city. I won't say which city, but,
Fair enough.
So it's a great gig. So it's some folks are using it for supplemental income, and also it's fun. It's fun medicine. I think rural hospitalist medicine is just a total blast. It's completely different than the big city. You're able to manage, a wide variety of things. You're not a glorified case manager. We love our case managers, of course, but you didn't go to med school to then just quarterback 4 different physicians, specialty consults, really. So you're there trying to figure things out on your own. Yeah, it's so much fun. You do get help. I mean, these big cities, they still help you out in times of need if you need to give them a call, either for a consult or transfer. I mean, it's never an issue there. So you always have help. But
do you have ID consults as a service, or is that something that you wish you had but you don't have a lot of access to? Curious.
So we are pretty blessed in Wyoming. Casper has a really good service where the ID docs have their own telehealth service. And so we will set up a telehealth appointment with the patient in the room. So they can, review wounds or whatever it may be. So we're pretty blessed to have that. It's interesting, though, you brought that up. I have been approached by different doctors who have kind of toyed with the idea of expanding services like nephrology, ID. Yeah, neurology is another huge one. It's especially Wyoming and Colorado, rural areas in these states, it's very close-knit. You kind of know everybody. And so
the business development side of this has been your baby. At least that's what it feels like. Like you've really nurtured finding these relationships, identifying who's a good partner. Some have been good partners. Hopefully all of them have been good partners. But talk to me a little bit about the business development side of this. Like how you walk out of residency, you're doing some 1099s. You like this idea of providing service for rural hospitals. You're starting to gather these docs who can kind of do this together. But now you got to go find hospitals. So talk to me about finding hospitals.
Right. Coming out, I think really being a good hard worker and also not being a jerk actually helped me out tremendously, honestly, just with making partnerships and friendships and finding good doctors. But the the cool thing is really the hospital in Craig, Colorado, take a bit of a risk going with me because really I hadn't done anything like this before, but I said, hey, I've got these 4 really amazing doctors plus myself, and we'll be great. This is going to be, the best setup you've ever had. And so they went for it. And honestly, it was a lot harder than I expected, just getting everything set up as far as a business standpoint. But it was very rewarding, of course, just seeing how we were able to turn around the hospital from a very poor revenue standpoint to also just the patients. You hear the feedback from the patients and how they could visibly see the difference and how people are getting, how they're being taken care of in the hospital, and the nurses' feedback. So all those things have definitely helped. And so I think being a good person has helped me out. It really has helped me out. And so that was at the forefront of business development. And so, having that, of course, you have to build trust in these small towns. People are a little bit scared of the outsider. Lucky for me, though, is that I had spent several years in these small towns and people are able to talk. And so I had a reputation kind of going into this. I wasn't some random person talking to the CEO. They've either heard of me or worked with me. And so that helped a lot just with the business development piece. And so, yes, I really was able to bring on more doctors than I knew what to do with, just because they wanted to work, in this new type of model, and they didn't want to work for a venture capitalist firm. They wanted to work for a physician-led group. And so I think there's something to be said there. But as the years go on, we finally have a really good reputation, and really that just, you have to be there every single day. You can't make any mistakes. And so there is some stress associated with that, but it really has all been worth it. And as we grow, I just have to be careful, that we don't grow too fast and that we're fulfilling our promises and we're making all these folks happy in these small towns.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key with growth, and you're doing this already, is finding the right partners to work with, right?
Huge.
Figuring out what you're doing that you can delegate and what are those things that are your superpower that you want to keep doing. So you talk about the relationship, you talk about the doctor piece and still seeing patients. Like those are all fill your cup stuff. I'm guessing just based on knowing you. But then what are the things that don't fill your cup? And obviously some of those you still have to do every day. Right. But then as you get big enough, you can kind of go, okay, how can I get help or delegate that piece off to someone else? Because then you can spend more time bringing on quality doctors or checking quality control, whatever metrics, if you guys follow metrics for your docs or working with your hospitals, to say, okay, here are the key things that are a measure of success for our doctors and for our patients,
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly there are things that I hated. Mm-hmm. Scheduling is the one thing I hated, scheduling the doctors, but you have to do it. You're not big enough to really hire on. Whereas
are you still scheduling?
I just hired on this year a scheduler, and that's been, I could sleep again.
Good.
You see blocks. It's like a game of Tetris in your dreams. It's so there are things like that where, you have to roll up your sleeves. You have to get it done. That's just the nature of healthcare. Scheduling is a bear, but there's certainly.
I feel like when you do that, right? Like when you've done it, then you understand.
Oh, for sure.
Because even with the billing company, I would say the same thing, that there were things that I was doing that in the beginning of time, like in the evenings and at night and on Thanksgiving break, once you've dug into that level and fixed things, A, you understand what your staff is going through, and B, you understand the process better than if you would have just seen somebody do it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Absolutely. I think that is the benefit of having an initial slow growth or slow rollout is you're able to innately get comfortable with all aspects of the business. And so that when you do grow, and it feels like I'm starting to all of a sudden rapidly grow, I at least have a really good pulse as to how hard this is or what I can and cannot do realistically and what my expectations are for the people that I bring on. And so all those things I think it's just really helpful when you've done it all yourself. I think some people may not agree with that. They think hire on and early and delegate, which I've now done, but it took a little bit of time. It took a couple of years.
Yeah.
Until I finally started delegating things out. So I think that approach is a little bit different than what even I've had mentors tell me to do. So just a little bit something to consider for folks who are really thinking about, do I start the business? I don't know if I have the funds to hire out all these people. Well, you can start and you can do these things yourself. You don't have to wait until, you're making loads amount of money where you can just start paying everybody a salary. You don't have to do that.
Well, and nowadays I feel like there's this, all these micro practices where, you can kind of structure things and grow and hire only as you grow. Like you don't start with a full staff load. You start with, okay, me and maybe one other person to room patients. And again, that's obviously more of a clinic model versus yours with the hospital model. But then you grow over time. I'm already planning 2026 goals because I'm crazy like that. So I'm already sitting down and going like, okay, what do we need what processes do we need to improve on? What technology can we use? We're getting really excited about AI, but not so excited that I'm ready to use it everywhere. But we're finding a few key targeted, very manual processes with billing that we can say, okay, we can fix that and automate that over time. And so it is cool to see what advances from a technology perspective are out there. And so it's the people piece, it's the technology piece, all of it. What would you say has been the hardest thing? And then we'll end on a good note with what has been the easiest thing. But what's been the hardest thing with starting your own business like this?
Oh man, of course, I can't actually think of anything that was truly that hard. Everything had a solution. I don't know if I have an answer for you.
That's good though.
I think if you do go into really any business with, I'm going to figure it out attitude, I think that probably carries. And that's what I've always tried to do. So downside, I will say, is starting your own business, there really are no days off. You're working all the time, day and night, weekends, holidays. And so that is definitely kind of the negative of the whole aspect. But at the same time, you do get some flexibility that, you're working on a weekend, but you're, in northern Wisconsin on a lake, visiting family, sending emails from the dock. And so it's not like you're really restricted to an office. But so if I really had to pick one thing, I would say that. And then what was the follow-up question, the fun one?
Yeah, I just what has been the most rewarding part of this, or the thing that you've loved the most about doing this?
Oh boy. I think just hearing my doctors, my colleagues, just their positive experiences and them being thankful for having, a good group to work with. I honestly, they definitely don't know how much that means to me. And a lot of times it's just kind of like, a random little positive text or comment when we're handing off patients. But definitely that makes it all worth it, I think. Just knowing that my colleagues are happy with the group and everything that they're doing. They're really satisfied. They're not getting burnt out. They're happy to show up to work. They're excited to work. I think just seeing that compared to some of my other colleagues that are on the daily grind and they hate their lives and they're burned out, just kind of seeing the juxtaposition is really extremely satisfying.
I love that.
That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, you've built a really great practice. I know Tiana enjoys working with you. Her and I met this morning and reviewing numbers. And so she's enjoyed working with you and she's great.
She's top notch.
She's great.
We're blessed to be able to work with her. All the docs love their interactions with her. And so solid job getting her with your group.
We've got some good team members. It's your babies that you love. And so you don't mind it. But at the same time, it's just a lot of work. But the people part has been the best. Tiana's been with us since day one.
Oh,
she's our longest employee. I would say once you find that, it is like rock and roll. Let's go. It's so much fun.
Oh, absolutely. I've been beyond blessed with great doctors. I really think that's why this has worked out so well, is I think the greatest docs. I did cherry pick all the docs that I love to work with over the last decade.
As you should.
It's just, and it's also fun, right? Because you knew them in a more friendship way. Now you have, a bunch of your friends and really good colleagues that are working with you as a team. And, and everybody's amazing. Nobody's yelling at nurses. Everybody's respectful of staff. And so that whole piece makes it really, really well. And, as I grow and I'm hiring on docs that I didn't know in another past, job or life, I have to be very careful that there's a good personality fit. And so I do make sure that those docs are talking to my docs and, going to dinner with them and lunch with this this other doctor just to make sure that this is going to be a good fit. We're not going to have to worry about the 2 a.m. phone call, but the doc making a nurse cry and all those types of things. And so, it's been a great experience, mostly because the doctors are so awesome.
That's great. I love hearing that. I've known you a long time, and we've seen your practice grow as well. It's a different model that I don't think people think about, with building a group that is servicing rural hospitals from a hospitalist standpoint, and that there is a business there to be had, plus just the need that's there for these critical access hospitals.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, a lot of these hospitals are struggling, as you mentioned, and people don't realize that a lot of them are operating, with a negative margin. And but I think having a sustainable hospitalist program where you're able to bring in as much revenue, keep patients local, so that you're able to help boost that revenue. And of course, you'll see some downstream revenue as well if you're able to hospitalize the patient in your local hospital. Trying to increase that 1% is definitely going to help keep these hospitals alive and open so that they can continue for many, many years to come. And so there's not a massive healthcare desert, which is kind of slowly, unfortunately, happening across the U.S. So I'm a little bit worried about that, but I think, all the hospitals I'm in right now, we're seeing positive margins and good futures. And so I'd love to see that happen across the entire country if possible. It just takes a lot of grit, for sure. Yeah, no, I think honestly, you guys are so sharp with everything. And I know we talked about a year ago when we first switched everything. It was about a year ago. Yeah. And I just think that your team's really stepped in and made everything really organized. And I just love Excel spreadsheets, just showing the data. The docs love it too. Everybody's just really happy seeing the data. And I love how Tiana will send me every month kind of the overall assessment as to how are we doing month over month, how are we doing year over year, and look at graphs. It's just, you do such a great job with that. And it's been fun to see. And also, really, since we brought you folks on, we've seen an improvement in payouts. Receipts have improved. Having really good credentialing is a huge piece of that. But also, I think being organized with your approach with denials and all that, you guys have just crushed it. And it's been a really, I would say, probably one of the best partnerships that our group's had is with you guys. It's been great.
Well, one of the things, the hardest thing with hospital billing, and this is with you guys and any of the hospitals that we do billing with, is the eligibility piece. Because when the patient comes in, they give one insurance card. And so chasing down, and we finally got contacts at the hospital. The hospitals are typically getting the information. So it's best if the eligibility or the new insurance comes from the hospitals. We've enjoyed working with you. I've enjoyed getting to see you on this side of the fence. Back from our 2015 days. It's been 10 years. 10 years. That's crazy.
How time flies.
Yeah, it is. Well, it was good to hang out today. I appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing your journey. I think it's really great to see doctors build really cool things, which is our goal. So really awesome.
Yeah, and very impressive to see what you've done too. It's been fun to see that. Thanks for having me today. And I look forward to working with you as the years go on.
We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.